Okay, well, first of all, my name is Wendy Mould, and I was a teacher. I worked with children with learning disabilities for my working career. That's what I did. I worked both in the elementary schools, and my last 10 years, I was a department head and ran a learning center at a high school, and I really enjoyed it. I love working with the kids. I love that one-on-one opportunity to really make a difference with them. And I certainly found that has carried over into my artwork as well. The last, I'd say 6 years of working as a teacher, I started to work part-time because my art was really starting to take off with me. I wanted to do more of it. And I knew that's what I wanted to work on when I took early retirement, which is what I did. I started off, I've always had this need to create. I don't know, I used to hook rugs and then I'd have to design them first before I could hook them. I used to decorate cakes, so then I'd have to design it before I could do it. And I worked with fabric as well and designed lots of things. I used to do lots of sewing and quilting and things like that. I really enjoyed making things. It was just something I needed to do. I found actually when my kids started to get a bit older, in their early teens, I started to have more time. I realized then it was really drawing I wanted to do, and I started to draw. And it just went from there. I used to take all the books out of the library. This is pre-internet stuff, and I actually worked from books, and I am self-taught. Once I got really into it, I then started to take a few, one-day workshops and things like that. When I went into it, I realized that it was nature I wanted to do. I love to hike, walk, camp. We do lots of canoeing, kayaking, things like that. And I have all my life. And so when I'm out in the bush, I really wanted to capture that moment. And that was my real drive to draw. And that's what I did. And so I have journals from years and years ago when I first started, which is probably over 30 years ago now, of different little sketches. And some of those sketches just really caught my eye, and I was really amazed with what I could do right from the get-go. And that was my encourager, and that kept me going. And I just went from there. From pencil, I experimented with pen, and I really liked that sharp, crisp line. And I played with pens a lot, but I would go back and forth between the pen and the pencil because that is really where my roots are, working with pencil. I love that, the gray tones. I love that sense of reality that you can get with them. And particularly if you look at my animals, you'll see, I just love that. I mean, the fur looks like it can be touched. It's so soft and pliable, and the feathers and the birds. I just love that. So that really attracts me. If I have a really great picture that I've captured of a bird, I want to do it in pencil because I just want to capture that softness and texture. At the same time, after a while, that graininess of pencil gets to me, and I look for that sharp line, and so then, and the real darks. And so then I get working with my pen again, and my husband was kind of instrumental. He kept saying, you know, people like color, and I said, okay, I'll try some watercolor with it. And actually, that's sort of now what I like to do too, is as I go back and forth, depending on what the subject is or what I'm doing. I'll do it in pencil, I'll do it in ink with watercolor. And I find that I do some just watercolors, but the bottom line is I love that crispness of that ink, and I like the contrast of the sharpness of the pen and that softness of the watercolor. And so those are those are my main things that I like to do. And of course, all the outdoor stuff meant that I do outdoor sketching. And really from, I guess, from early spring until it's cold in the fall, I like to be outdoors sketching and painting. When we camp, I usually paint every day. And I would have several pictures going because, of course, the tide goes out, the sun changes. So you can't sit in one spot and work all day in one picture because everything is different. So I'd have my morning picture, I'd have my tides out picture, I'd have my picture that I'd work on in camp. And so I would work on all of these every day and just go back and forth and do that. And yes, that's sort of how my art has developed. Yes, and my sketchbook is really a big part of what I do. As I have worked on finding a really small kit, and I have my own perfect little kit, which I use, and it really is no bigger than, you know, just this, and it fits in my backpack, and it is great. I've used it. Well, when I'm out in the kayak, I just take my pen and my small sketchbook, and I can draw there, but I have a little watercolor kit with it as well, and I've used it on airplanes. It's great on those little trays on an airplane. You can fit the whole thing on there, and you can paint while you're on the plane. But in restaurants in Europe, I've done a number of trips to Europe, and each time I take my book and wherever I am, I just draw and paint. And if I have a few minutes, I go for it. It was kind of neat. We were in Rome back when we could travel, and I just loved it there. It was so neat to do the ruins and the statues. I found I really loved doing statues, even though I like nature. I was just amazed that I found doing those statues. They were so beautiful. So I did a number of them, and yeah, I know I sent one picture, which I've included in this, of me sitting on the Spanish steps, and there's people all around, and it's interesting. Many artists are afraid to sketch in public. People will bother them. But if you noticed in that picture, it was full. Everyone's sitting on the Spanish steps, and we're looking out over, and no one bothered me at all, except for my sisters, of course, they were with me. And unless you make eye contact, they don't. And afterwards, though, then they'll come up and talk to you, and you want to see what you did and that sort of thing. So yes, it's not just nature, although the bottom line is nature is what I love to do on a daily basis. But when I'm traveling, anything goes. Well, with my graphite, I like to work with pencils, and I enjoy the texture that you get with pencils. I use a heavy board for my drawing on. I use Rising Museum board, a 2-ply white, and I like that texture that I get, and I like that contrast of the white with the pencil. I really enjoy doing, as I said, my birds and my animals with that graphite. I love the way you can create the sense of texture of the fur, the feathers, the life. They just seem to come to life on paper when I'm drawing them. Some artists I know put the eyes in first, but I don't. I like to have a little bit of a setting around the face, and then I'll put the eyes in, because as soon as you put the eyes in, they become alive to me. You can see them on the paper. There's life there, and then it's like, oh my gosh, I got to finish this. So it also spurs me on as well to do that part of it. Definitely pet portraits is something I ended up doing just because I like doing. I'm probably the only person that wanders around and notices the profiles of dogs. I mean, I really enjoy birds, animals, but also horses. Horses are wonderful to do, and dogs and cats, and they just have so much life to them. I find I really like that. The one particular picture that I sent, that I included in my collection, is a picture of a rabbit, and I call that Special Treats, because that was our little rabbit Zoe. We had her for 9.5 years, and I just caught this shot of her reaching up to eat flowers from my planter, and I just had to do it. And that picture has become very iconic for me. I did it a number of years ago, and I find that even today, if I take cards or prints of that little shot, that I'll definitely sell it in any show I do. And she's special to me too. As I say, 9.5 years we had that little bunny. Well, watercolor and ink are I love that. And I have experimented with that in a variety of ways. Sometimes I hide the ink work. And I think at first I used to hide the ink work. I would have ink down first, and then the watercolor would go over it. And so the ink would kind of be embedded, but sort of secondary to the watercolor. And then gradually I went into some other kind of things. When I was doing, a couple of years ago, one of my outdoor sketching series was all about the ink. And I did lots and lots of very detailed, very realistic ink work. And then I only used 2 colors of watercolor to add some color to it. And I was really pleased with what happened. And to me, the ink stood out, and now the watercolor was secondary. And that was kind of like a different idea for me. And so I played with that as well. And then gradually now I've seemed to come into a place where I let them both shine. And so, for example, the picture behind me, Cascading, which is also in the group I gave you, is one of my newest pieces. And it really incorporates what I'm trying to do, in that the ink is really standing out and a very dynamic force, I think, in that picture. But at the same time, the watercolor is also, I don't know, working with it to create that dynamic force. And it seems to me the 2 of them are working together, and they're both having an opportunity to shine, which is important to me. I don't know why, but it is important to me. And of course, the subject is the other part of it too, is I want nature, and I want people to really zoom in on nature and see all these little mini environments that are out there, and how they work together. So that's where I'm at now with my ink and watercolor. Yes, wildlife. Somehow, like, I can do the ferns, and I can do animals, and I can do nature, but somehow it seems empty without having a bird somewhere there. So lots of times I'm looking for that bird to sit on that branch, or I'm looking for that animal to be peeking out of the bush, or things like that. One of the ones that I did, I know that I did a nice one that I've included, is a seal with her pup on the rock. And I just love that. I want my animals to be in their environment. I don't want them to be in a zoo. I don't want them to be on a bird feeder. I want them to be out in their life where they need to be. I think that that's really important to me, I realized, and I'm trying to sort of figure out why. Part of it is to me, it's a special moment when you're hiking along the trail and you look up and you see an owl. Like, to me, that is such a wonderful experience. And so I want to capture that experience and share it with people, because I know that I'm really fortunate. Here on the West Coast, we have a lot of opportunity to see wildlife in our parks and along the shoreline. And so I know that many don't have that. And so I want to share that and really remind people that this is something we need. We need to feel that, and we need to see that. It's different from going into a zoo and seeing an animal than it is to be walking along. And let me tell you, when you come around the corner and you see a bear, there isn't time to take a picture. You just kind of move out fast and hope that he goes in the other direction. When I do my wildlife, I always base it on my experiences. So, of course, I don't have a good picture of that bear because he was running in one direction and I was going in the other. But I do try and just stick with my references, my experiences, because that's part of my passion. And that's what I want to show in my work. I'd love to get some good shots of cougars. I have seen them in the wild, but so far, it's not the same to draw it from somebody else's reference. It has to be from me. That's what I've also discovered when it comes to my wildlife. Oh yes, I really enjoy. I enjoy the line work, I think, too, of rocks and trees and stumps. I'm very attracted to that. It's a funny thing, but I like to draw old stumps, and I like to draw gnarled things and rocks and moss. Those are my favorite things to see, and maybe too because here on the coast, it's something I see all the time on my walks is mossy covered rocks. I love those mossy covered branches. I like the way they hang and droop, and I just want to do them, draw them with my pen, and just get all that little gnarly stuff in there, and just, I don't know, just show it. And of course, I love the lime greens of all the different mosses. That's another thing that I really enjoy. So those are just some of my passions. Certainly, that's very true. I hadn't really thought about it like that. I do work in isolation a lot. My husband, we travel a lot together, but he's not able to walk, and so generally, I have my dog. That's my company, and he and I will set out and go on our hikes. He's actually pretty good. He'll sit for about an hour and a half once we find a spot, and I get settled in painting. And then he's ready to move around, and actually it's a good thing because I should really get up and stretch by then too. Um, we do lots of little trips ourselves, and we'll go off for the day and come back, and yes, but at the same time, it's lonely. I think that's one of the reasons why I like to teach. One of the things I really enjoy doing in the summertime is taking classes. I usually take 1 to 3 people out and do some outdoor sketching with them. And I find that really lots of fun, just to share that moment with them. And I guess too, to have that company and just, feel it and share the excitement, and all of them, at the end of the time, they've never thought of going to just one of the local parks and getting a spot by the water and painting and drawing. And for them, it's just usually a wonderful experience. And for me, it's just a pleasure to have that company, because you're right, I do a lot of work by myself. But many artists do. That's not unusual. It's sort of the nature of the beast, because in order to really work on things, you need to just get in there and go at it and not be bothered by chatter and the other company, and kind of get lost in the moment. And I guess that's part of what I really enjoy, is getting lost in that moment. I do private lessons. That's one of the things I really enjoy doing. And I do that a lot, well, before COVID, and certainly will start that up again afterwards. I find that for me, I need to share my knowledge. I just want to share it with other people. And I think because of my teaching experience working with others, and especially working with people with learning disabilities that are struggling, I can understand the struggle of an artist. You've taken some classes, you want to, but you're still not doing what you want to do. And a group class can no longer solve your problems. And so then that's where I think I come in. I can help you, work with you on your goals. And so I do a lot of private lessons. The other area I find that's very needy is with children. I've had a number of children come to me because when you're 8, 9, 10, there's not a lot out there for you. There's group classes, but they tend to be more crafty kind of things. Or if you're really good, they really don't have time for you because the rest of the class is demanding their attention. So I have worked with a number of young people. The youngest was 9, and right through into their teens, and and of course a lot of adults who would like to really learn how to draw now, which is something that I find people are very afraid of, and they don't really know how to do is just draw. They'll paint, but they really don't know how to draw, and it has such an effect on the success of their painting. So I do that. The other kind of lessons I do is the outdoor sketching. As I said before, I like to take a group, 1 to 3 people, and just go out for 2.5 hours, sit in the bush and do some drawing. It really is a wonderful experience for them, and certainly one for myself. At the same time, I've also been doing some workshops every year on marketing for artists, because I find so many artists have such beautiful work and they have no idea how to get it out there to the public. And so in February of every year, except for COVID, for the last 12 years, I've run a all-day workshop for beginning artists on how to get their work out there and how to promote themselves. I also write about art. I'm a writer. I have a blog, and I've been running it for about 12 and a half years now, Art by Wendy's blog. And it's based on, loosely based on drawing and writing tips, but at the same time, it also talks about the life of an artist and some of the things that are happening. For example, I did a whole series on how to get ready to go outdoor sketching, how to get your kit set up, things like that. I've also done things like now with virtual shows. For example, I did a virtual show last summer, and I felt that just having my pictures on a screen wasn't enough. I wanted to have some of my personal input. So I did a artist statement, and it was like 3 or 4 minutes video for my show that could be posted with the virtual show. So then, of course, I blogged about it because I thought this is something other people need to try and do, and it's really quite doable if you work at it. So, you know, this is what I mean, where I talk about techniques, life, things that happen, those kind of things. So those are ways I like to share my art and share my knowledge, I guess, moving it forward. You know, it seems to be an important thing for me to do.
What are you working on right now?
Well, right now I'm working on a couple of things. It's spring is coming and the weather's been nice. I've already had one outdoor sketching class going. And so that's sort of a priority right now, is to advertise that and get people out there sketching. And so I'll be doing outdoor sketching classes now, from now right through till the middle of September. So that's one of my priorities. Out of my work with working with video and doing the video statement for my own show, I've actually ended up with a job. And I do what's called gallery talks. Our community gallery features a virtual show every month featuring some artists. And so I go and interview these artists, and sometimes we Zoom and sometimes we do it social distancing, depending on what the restrictions are at the time. And so I prepare a video approximately 8 to 10 minutes long, just interviewing them and getting them to talk about the show and their work and what's going on. And that is something that they can post with their virtual show on the Arts Council website. And so the Arts Council has booked me to do this each month for this year. And it's kind of exciting. I'm really enjoying it. Some of the artists I already know and some of them I don't. And it's really neat to talk with them and hear them speak about their work and what they're doing. So the gallery talks, my outdoor sketching are my two big priorities. I also, of course, do my weekly blog, and I'm also doing monthly little videos, because one of the things I want to do is to expand in that area. And so for the Arts Council, again, they have an instructional series, and I do a little art activity video for them. It's about 8 minutes about different things for people to do, sketchbooking things, things like that. And so that's my other priority right now. And of course, for my own personal work, because it seems like I've been talking about everybody else, the big thing I'm working on is what I call my Deep in the Forest series. And again, the cascading is one of them. Another example of a picture that I sent is the one with a squirrel in it. And he's sitting on a stump, and early snowfall, I think it was called. For this particular series, as I say, it's taking what I'm doing in nature and my outdoor sketching, and I'm using those studies to create my own bigger pieces. And again, it's zooming in on the environment and really finding a small pot. For example, one of the pictures I'm doing right now, it's right here. I can show you. I don't know if you can see it that well, but it's just again, my mossy rocks on the creek bed, and it's just kind of zooming in on that. And so right now, I haven't incorporated my birds into the pictures yet, but that's what I want to do because, of course, um, there would probably be a little, when I was there the other day, there was actually a little crown sparrow that was sitting on it. Another time I might, when I was there last year, I actually captured some really good footage of some owls, and I've done some work with them. And so I want to do some more work with those pictures as well, and put them into those settings. But I want to really zoom in on the environment and really just show, a few logs or trees or a branch and something like that, and just really feel that you're there and have it come out of the page. And that's why I've left part of it white, and I've left the mauve background, because I want this to just kind of, just like if you were coming around the corner on the trail, you would just come around and boom, you'd see this. And then you kind of see the rest. And so I want to just make it come out at you, and just how you would feel if you saw it. So those are my goals right now, and my projects that I'm working on.
Do you do research on these birds before you start working?
Oh, definitely, I do some research, but most of these birds I see all the time. So my research is more, I guess, more on the spot type of thing. I have some work at the Rifle Bird Sanctuary, and so I'm out there I don't know, I've been there for about 7 or 8 years now, and so, I guess it's more like 10. So I'm out there regularly, and I'm actually seeing, the ducks on the water. The most recent picture I just did is that Canadian goose, and he's a distinguished Canadian, I called him, and he's just rising out of the water and spreading his wings out. And that drove me crazy, all the feather patterns and stuff. But I have been studying those geese. I sit and watch them all the time. When we're camping, this time of year, you'll see them everywhere with their young. And I've done a number of pictures of them and watched them grow up. So my studies are not so much as in the book looking at things. It's more following them, because as I say, these are birds and animals that I have seen and see them all the time in my travels.
also seem to add your own interpretation to nature. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes, yes. I know what you mean. I think that's my own kind of response to the sea of green. That I like to I like to play with it a little bit. You know, sometimes I'll do it quite realistic, but lots of times I like to incorporate my own colors. And sometimes what I really kind of like to do sometimes is more abstract. I love playing with the idea of abstract and reality, crashing them together. I just love forcing my realistic drawing on this really abstract kind of background. And so I'll do that as well. And often as not, my abstracts are incorporating a lot of ink work and things like that. I play with, you know, as a pen artist, I like to play with doodling and those entangling stuff too. And so sometimes I'll, you know, kind of push those guys together and make them play. And it's just sort of my own kind of fun. I spent a week with Robert Bateman. He's a well-known Canadian wildlife artist. And I went into a retreat with him. And it was kind of interesting listening to what he likes to do, because he does these beautiful wildlife pieces, but he likes to play, and he has his own little games that he plays in his pictures as well. And so I had to chuckle when he was talking about it, because I have my own little games that I play and things I like to do. And of course, that's one of them. It's really just squishing and forcing those two different ideas to work together. And I'm always pleased. I don't know if everyone else is, but I'm always pleased with the kind of things that come out of it. And it's fun for me. Okay. Yes, my pet portraits actually have grown into a bigger thing than just pets, because of course, many people love their pets. So of course, that's why they're having their portraits done. And certainly, and so often they'll send me a picture and it'll be with them with their pet. And at first I was quite like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can draw people. But then I started playing around with it and I realized, well, just like drawing anything else, it's just lights and darks. And so I really kind of got into that. And so, yes, I do offer that as an option for people, and especially if they send me a picture with them holding their dog. It's like, oh, yes, this is a great picture. I need to draw this picture. And also what happens too is I end up with doing memory pieces for people and things like that. And so it'll be a group of pictures that they'll send me, and I'll be working them in together. And it just seems to be that they need to be in that picture sometimes. I play around as well, although I like to stick, you know, I'm a bit of a purist, and sometimes I like that graphite only, but I do, sometimes there's just calls for a little bit of color. And so I'll take my colored pencils and add that little bit. Maybe it has to be a certain tag that the animal always wears. I know when I was doing sandhill cranes, I just had to do that little touch of red that's in them. I was doing some northern flickers, and they have a specific bit of color that just has to be there for the male. And so I have incorporated people as well as a little bit of colored pencil in with the pencil work. But definitely, it was a surprise to me the first time I did a person that, hey, I can really draw these people and they actually look really neat. But now I quite enjoy that as well, and certainly do that. Yeah. Well, yes. Children have emerged in my art. You're right. And I've discovered that I love the 2, 3, 4, 5-year-olds. They're so fun. I like the way they look at things and study things, and you can just see their brains working. And I just love that excitement of that learning happening. And so I like to, and of course I have grandchildren now, and my grandchildren are quite young. The twins will be 3. We have twins, and they'll be 3 at the end of this month. And so I really have been noticing that kind of thing even more, and I have opportunities to take pictures. I'm pretty sure the picture that I sent you is my grandson with the cat, and he's, I just I just love their little hats, and I just love the way they bond together, and it's just such a neat feeling that I feel when I see a young child experimenting, learning, feeling, and so those are things I like to capture too, and especially with pencil. Although I have done it with watercolor as well, I just find I like that. I don't know. I like that soft touch there, and just the contrast of the textures and the sense of liveliness, and just the realistic feeling that I get when I look at them. I think in many ways, especially when I read about what was happening around the world, and oh, I felt so bad because I had just been to Italy just a couple months prior to COVID, and what was happening there, especially last year, well, everywhere. I I felt lucky. I felt blessed. I really did. I felt as an artist, I had no trouble entertaining. For many people to entertain themselves day in and day out in their home was not a challenge for me at all. I had lots to do. I worked on my art a lot. I learned that's where I learned how to do videos and watch lots of tutorials, and began to do my online uh, activities. I was lucky. I picked up that contract last spring. The Arts Council, because everything was going online, they wanted some more online material and asked me if I would like to do something. And I said, sure. I didn't even know how to do it, but there's a video thing on my phone. I'm sure I can figure this out. And so anyway, I got into that and got into editing and started producing that. So that was a sort of a lifesaver for me. And it was something I could do here in my studio. I did, I started doing, and of course my outdoor sketching last summer we went right until the middle of September. That was another lifesaver because it was something I could do. It was local, it was outside, and was easy to do. So those were things that really took off for me and gave me a chance to do some more of my drawing. I really felt that compared to other people, I didn't feel so enclosed. The only time it bothered me was when I actually had to go into the public and actually interact with them. And then it all came back to me, and it just seemed to be overwhelming. My husband is not well. He's had vulnerable health, and I was just petrified that I would pick something up and bring it back to him and wouldn't let him go anywhere. And so for him, it was actually tougher than it was for me because I at least got out a little bit. But as I say, very fearfully when I did go out. So I was happy to just stay home and work on my art, and I did most days, just worked on it. We had a property, so I could go out in the yard and sketch there, and I could work in my studio if the weather wasn't good. And so yes, for me, I felt very blessed.
How did you decide that graphite, ink, and watercolor were your
I don't know. I don't know what I think it's part of what I love about watercolor. For example, I love that transparency. I work with mostly transparent watercolors. I might put a touch of opaque at the very end, but I like the transparency of watercolor. I find oils and acrylics heavy and bulky and thick, and they sort of lack that looseness and softness of watercolor. And so I have never, although I've worked with acrylics and I've worked with oils, they have never held my interest for any length of time. And with my pencil, it's the texture. I love the texture of the pencil on the tooth of the paper. I just love that, the way it works and the way it feels when you're working with it. So those are two reasons why I've just definitely stayed with those two mediums. And of course, my pen work. Anything, and drawing. I think that's the other thing too, is that's kept me with my pencil and pen, is I love to draw. I like to draw things. And I just enjoy fiddling with that kind of stuff. And they seem to meet that need. I would go into pastels as well. But I thought, oh no, you've got enough on your plate. but pastels would be certainly something that would attract me. I like the drawing aspect of pastels, and I like the blending as well. But I don't like the dust, and I don't want the dust in my graphite. I have a studio. In my studio, I have two working areas. I have my watercolor working area, and I have my pencil working area. And I know that if I had a pastel, I'd have to have a pastel working area as well, just to keep them all separate. And I thought, no, you got to stick to something you can manage. So I've stayed with those mediums.
What did you bring from your teaching career?
Oh, I can see that's my teaching experience working with children with learning disabilities of all ages, because I worked right from elementary school right up to grade 12, high school, is I really found confidence. Confidence is a huge thing. Confidence, dealing with imperfection, and just dealing with frustration, overcoming those kind of things, encouraging yourself. Just ways to self-encourage yourself to keep motivated. I found those were things that carry totally into the art world. Artists, I mean, I have met artists that are afraid to show their work to anyone. Their confidence is so small, minute. They easily frustrate. We've all seen those pages that have been erased with the holes in them. I see them. I saw them at school all the time. They couldn't do the math, Mrs. Mould. And you know how to. Oh, talking to your inner critic is another thing that I think is very hard for artists. And those are all things that I dealt with when I worked with kids with learning disabilities, is how to build success, how to take a little piece of success and make it grow and grow and grow. And that's the same with art, and how to, you get, an artist gets frustrated. They can't do what they want to do. Their picture doesn't say what they want to say. They can't see anything good. And how to be able to step back, and how to be able to talk to your inner critic and make it productive. In fact, I've done a number of blogs on talking to your inner critic and making it your BFF, because I think those are things that really hold artists back, and especially a beginning artist, it really tampers some of their creativity. And so learning how to talk to themselves, and learning how to work with their inner critic and make it productive, and how to look at their work and see good things instead of just bad things. I always suggest to my students that the first thing they need to do when they do something is to look at it. What do you like about this picture? Because of course, all they see is that spot there that's horrid. And that's all they can see. They can't see anything good that's happening in that picture. And so how can you progress if you're just locked in this little spot? So those are, and it's the same. You can't do math. How can you do math when you're sitting there saying, I hate math, I hate math? And so it's trying to work around all of those things. So definitely a lot of that helped me in my teaching and working and talking with people, and in a positive way, an encouraging way. And I guess too, I tend to be, the cup is half full rather than half empty. I usually can see something good. And I know myself, when I look at my own work, there are things, of course, no picture is perfect, but there are things that's happened in that picture that I just love. And so I look at those things. Why do I love it? Why is it so good? Why did it work? Those are questions to ask, rather than, oh my gosh, you're just focused on that negative. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have put that color in. I shouldn't. That's not productive. So those are all, I'm sure all of that has come out of my experience with working with these teenagers and younger students. Definitely, I think it's been to my advantage to have that experience. Yes, actually, I have done a number of urban sketches. I go into Vancouver before COVID, and we have a lot of iconic scenes along the water, and it's really nice to go in bridges, buildings. They are definitely interesting. I think in many ways they're more concrete, more easier to draw, and sometimes in nature it's hard to find that thing to draw. An open field. I'm not a big vista person. I like to focus in on things, even when I'm in the city. When I was in Scotland, oh man, there were so many neat things to draw there. I did lots of drawing in the city. We stayed in right on the Golden Mile. We were just a block off of it, and it was great. I could get up first thing in the morning and go and sit on some of the little restaurants outside and sketch all day, for that matter. It was really good. I like that. I can certainly see why urban sketchers are out there. I went to, I've gone to a number of different cities. Went to Bangkok. That was neat. Really enjoyed that. And we went to a number of different places, and just urban sketching could be my thing. I guess the only reason I probably don't pursue it as much as I do is because my love of camping and kayaking, canoeing. So I am in nature a lot more than I am in urban settings. But yes, urban is nice and urban is fun, especially with my ink work. I love it with ink and a touch of watercolor. Can't beat it. Yeah. Well, that's the first time I did it, I thought, oh, I don't know if you can really do this, but actually you really can do this, and actually you can do it with watercolor too, and not so much in my canoe. I do it more in the kayak, because in a canoe both people have to be paddling and you kind of dig. What I do you can only do it when the water's calm, mind you, but you can get into places that you wouldn't normally see, like for example the shoreline. Usually as you're on the shore painting the shoreline, and so to be on the water looking on the shoreline, or to be out on the water in little islands and going through them, it's kind of neat. The water is calmer there when you get into little spots in between little islands and things, and so you just need a calm spot. Sometimes what I do ahead of time is I'll put some watercolor on my paper, and so I'll just have some splashes of color there. And then I'll go out and then just use my pen and draw over it. And that's kind of that imposing, your realism over just an abstract shape. But it is neat to see that little bit of color enhance what's happening in your drawing. And it's kind of fun to do that. I don't take my dog in the kayak when I'm going to be drawing, but usually Max comes with me when I kayak. If I'm photographing, it's fine, but not when I'm drawing. So yes, it's just different views, different ideas, and it was something. The first time I did it, I thought, well, I'm just going to try this to see if we really can do this. And afterwards, I thought, well, this is fun to do, and gives me a different perspective of things.
Younger generations seem to choose other media. So how do you feel that they understand watercolor?
Well, actually, from what everybody is acrylic. It's so easy to make corrections. It's so easy to fix it. It's so easy, and the colors are bright. I hear acrylic all the time, and I think you can have your acrylic. I really feel that they don't understand watercolor. They feel that you can't make any changes, any corrections, and like any medium, there are ways to make corrections. There are ways to make changes. You just have to not fight it. You have to work with it. I also think that sometimes I think, especially beginners, they're under a mistaken. They're mistaking what they think is really going on, because I'm painting with acrylic because it's a lot easier. I can always change it and make them and fix it. But what I find happens is they become obsessive, and they're always kind of fixing it. And of course, bottom line is they don't know how to draw either, and that does affect what's happening in their painting. And so and they want it instant. I guess that's the other thing. They want it instant, and things can't always be that way. But yeah, I feel that watercolor is definitely not understood. We're just a small little niche, but you know, I really feel it's important as an artist that you paint and you work with what you love, what is your passion. And so I continue with my passion, and I just hope sooner or later something changes. You know, maybe people will get tired of plastic and acrylic and things like that. Or certainly oils have always held their test of time and probably always will. But I don't, you know, who knows? There may be a resurgence again with watercolor. Certainly, I think with people's love of nature and wanting to get out there, the easiest thing to get out there with is a pen, pencil, and some watercolors. You don't have to be packing a lot of stuff, and you can do a lot and get satisfaction. So maybe they'll come back, but you're right. Right now, I don't think there is a strong following for those mediums. I guess my thing is to paint my passion. I think it's really important that I be myself, and I do what I love to do and not get bogged down by what everybody else wants to do. That's really my passion. Last year, or year before, I was in some art battles, and one of them was a drawing art battle. And I thought, you know, it would be really easy to draw a flower or something like that. It's very forgiving. But I felt it was important that I do me. And so I spent some time and I learned how to draw a heron and an eagle without reference material, because that was part of the battle, that you had only 20 minutes to draw an eagle or 20 minutes to draw a heron. And I won, actually. It was really neat. But I just really think it's important that you paint your passion and not worry about anyone else. And I think that's the encourager as well, that keeps you moving, because you're moving on things that you want to do, not what other people want to do. And I think it shows in your work, your passion, your interest. It shows in the results. Certainly, you can find my work online at artbywendy.com. You can find a lot of the projects that I'm working on and information about them on my blog, Art by Wendy's blog, at Blogspot. And I do have cards and prints available at a Kilby historical site all the time. They're open now until December. Rifle Bird Sanctuary has a lot of my cards and prints and things there as well, and I've been there. Both of these places have carried my work for 10 or 12 years now. I hope to get back and do some real on live shows soon, but right now things are pretty quiet. I will be doing some online classes. I'm going to be offering those. I soon hope to have them up and running later this fall on some of those kind of things. Right now, I do offer online mentoring classes, mentoring and coaching, and I'm really happy to talk with people and their inner critic and have them work together. And so those are the things that I'm doing and where I can be found right now.